The NFL offseason never fails to bring surprises, and this year is no different. It's not always a team's own decisions that affect them. In the NFL, the moves made by other teams often have a greater impact. And that's exactly what's happening with the Raiders right now. Recently, two major signings have completely shifted the NFL's draft landscape. Now, the Raiders will need to prepare for the draft with a different strategy. Additionally, Raiders GM John Spytek has dropped a hint about what their early draft move might be. So, let's dive in and discuss what's currently happening in the NFL and how the Raiders need to handle this situation. What's up, buddies? Welcome back. If you are new here, make sure you hit the subscribe button. We cover all AFC West news here on this channel, starting with John Spytek, the team's general manager who was spotted at Boise State University's Pro Day. And let's be real, there's really only one reason he was there: to check out running back Ashton Jeanty. Now, if you don't know who Ashton Jeanty is, let me break it down for you. This guy is an absolute phenom. He just wrapped up a historic 2024 college season, where he came within 60 yards of breaking Barry Sanders' single-season rushing record. Think about that, Barry Sanders. That alone tells you the kind of talent we're talking about. Jeanty is the complete package as a running back. He's fast, he's strong, he's got elite vision, and he knows how to find the end zone. It's no surprise that scouts and analysts are already projecting him as a future Pro Bowler. And not just that, but potentially one of the best running backs we've seen in years. For the Raiders, this makes perfect sense. Let's face it, their run game last season was a disaster. It was one of the worst in the league, and they've got to do something to fix it. Adding someone like Jeanty could be a game changer for their offense, and there's already speculation that the Raiders might use their 6th overall pick to grab him. Now, I get it. Drafting a running back that high is always a controversial move. A lot of people believe you've got to focus on building the trenches first, meaning offensive and defensive linemen should be the priority. And I understand that logic, but here's the thing. This year's offensive line class isn't exactly stacked. Compared to last year, the talent pool for top-tier offensive linemen just isn't the same. Sure, the Raiders still need help on the offensive line, particularly at guard, but they can find quality players in the 2nd or 3rd round. On the other hand, a generational talent like Ashton Jeanty doesn't come around every year. Passing on him at number 6 could be a huge missed opportunity, especially if another team scoops him up right after. Now, let's talk about the wide receiver situation for a second. Some people think the Raiders should go after an elite X-wide receiver in the draft, and yeah, they've got Jacoby Myers, who's a solid player and incredibly versatile. But let's be honest, Myers is at his best as a slot receiver. He's not that dominant X-wide receiver who can stretch the field and take over a game. Adding an elite X-wide receiver would make a huge difference. It would open up the field for someone like Brock Bowers, who's already looking like an all-pro tight end in the making. With the right pieces in place, this offense could become incredibly dangerous. Speaking of tight ends, the Raiders just signed another one to add depth to the position: Ian Thomas. But that move has sparked some rumors about Michael Mayer's future. Mayer has been solid, but apparently he's on the trade block. Honestly, I don't get it. Mayer is on a rookie contract, so he's not costing the team much. Plus, he's a great blocker, a good route runner, and he's got reliable hands. If anything happens to Bowers, having someone like Mayer as a backup could be crucial. Trading him for a late-round pick doesn't make much sense to me, but there might be more going on behind the scenes. Now, coming back to Jeanty, he didn't participate in the NFL Combine this year, and honestly, he didn't need to. His college tape speaks for itself. Everyone already knows he's the best running back in this draft class, but having John Spytek at his Pro Day is still significant. Pro Days give teams a chance to spend a little more time with players, see how they perform in a familiar environment, and get a better sense of their personality and work ethic. If the Raiders are seriously considering drafting Jeanty at number 6, having Spytek there to evaluate him in person is a big deal. This pick is a huge investment, and the team needs to be 100% sure about it. But here is a twist. You know Russell Wilson is heading to the New York Giants? This may be a regular news for some, yes teams. Sign players based on their needs. It's right, but this almost changes the entire draft scenario. Till now, we all were expecting that the Giants would draft a quarterback at their first pick and pick number 3 overall. But now, with Russell locked in as their starter and a depth chart that includes Jameis Winston and Tommy DeVito, it's unlikely they'll be going after a QB early. That move alone shifts the entire draft landscape. For the Raiders, this means 2 big things. One, it increases the chances of elite talent falling into their lap at pick 6. With New York likely to opt for a top-tier non-quarterback prospect like Travis Hunter or Abdul Carter, it narrows the pool of quarterbacks potentially picked early, including Shedeur Sanders. And 2, it creates opportunities for trade scenarios. If Shedeur is still available when the Raiders are on the clock, teams like the Cowboys, who are rumored to have interest, might be willing to trade up. That kind of scenario could allow the Raiders to trade back, accumulate more draft capital, and fill multiple roster holes. Trading back is a strategy I fully support. For a team like the Raiders, who are building both their offense and defense in a methodical, patient way, adding more picks makes perfect sense. It's a long-term approach that aligns with their spending habits in free agency so far. If the goal is to bolster the roster with young talent, this move by the Giants could pave the way for Las Vegas to execute that plan perfectly. But Russell Wilson's move isn't the only ripple worth examining. It also affects Aaron Rodgers' situation. Before Wilson joined the Giants, Rodgers was rumored to be deciding between New York and Pittsburgh. Now, the Steelers appear to be the frontrunner, keeping Rodgers in the AFC and intensifying competition for the Raiders. Pittsburgh's wildcard hopes just got a lot stronger with Rodgers potentially leading their offense. For the Raiders, this makes the path to the playoffs even more challenging, as they'll have to contend with stronger teams in their conference. Additionally, Rodgers' eventual contract could have an indirect impact on Las Vegas's ongoing negotiations with Geno Smith. Every quarterback deal sets a precedent, and if Rodgers secures a lucrative extension, it could raise Geno's asking price. The Raiders would be smart to finalize Geno's deal sooner rather than later to avoid any potential market shifts that inflate his value. It's a delicate balance because you don't want to overpay, but you also don't want to let negotiations drag out and potentially disrupt other offseason plans. Then we have the Stefon Diggs news, which adds another layer of intrigue. Diggs signing with the Patriots on a 3-year, $69 million deal, essentially a 1-year, $26 million guarantee, reshapes the market for wide receivers. It sets a benchmark for other veteran receivers like Keenan Allen or Amari Cooper. For the Raiders, this could mean heightened competition for free agent wideouts, especially given New England's willingness to spend big. The Patriots' aggressive moves also underscore the need for the Raiders to be strategic. If they're looking for a receiver to complement Geno or whoever ends up under center, they'll need to navigate a suddenly inflated market carefully. This is where the team's draft strategy becomes even more crucial. If the Raiders can't find the right receiver in free agency without overpaying, they'll need to rely on the draft. Fortunately, they've shown interest in several promising wideouts, including names like Tetairoa McMillan. Targeting a receiver early in the draft could provide the team with a long-term solution at a much lower cost. All in all, these moves across the league, Wilson to the Giants, Rodgers potentially to the Steelers, and Diggs to the Patriots, are interconnected. Each decision alters the Raiders' options and strategy, whether it's in the draft, free agency, or roster building. So, this is the story. The Raiders need to rethink their strategy. Now, there's always the possibility that the Raiders trade back a few spots to pick up additional draft capital and still grab Jeanty. But that's a risky move. This guy's so talented that another team could easily take him before the Raiders get another shot. If he's their guy, they might just need to pull the trigger at number 6 and not overthink it. I'll say this, if the Raiders do draft Jeanty, it's going to be exciting. Watching him run through NFL defenses, breaking tackles, and scoring touchdowns, that's going to be a lot of fun. But if they decide to trade back, still, I will consider this move a strategic move because this shows the Raiders are more focused on building whole roster than focusing on single position. That's all for now, but I want to hear your thoughts. Do you think the Raiders should draft Ashton Jeanty at number 6? Should they focus on another position instead? Or should they trade back, acquire more draft capital, and then focus on the best available resources? And what do you think about the Michael Mayer trade rumors? Let me know in the comments.